Conor O'Shea is with us. He's in studio here to help talk to us about this, which is the launch of the N-Pro headguard. N-Pro's rugby headguard reduces impact force to the head by up to 75% versus traditional headguards. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
This is important.
Oh, massively. I mean, I think it's not about a cure, it's about prevention and it's about safety, isn't it? So I think it's the first headguard to be accepted onto the World Rugby Trial. I think we saw the tackle in the World Cup and the lower tackle area, and with a view to try and reduce the number of impacts in the collision. So it's all part of a bigger picture to make the game safer. So it's very, very important.
And it's an Irish couple who've invented it.
Yeah, Mark and Sandra.
They're smart couple.
Listen, they're the people with the technology and the ability to pull together I think traditionally headguards were taken more as they thought it was protected, but it actually is more for cuts and abrasions and things like that. It was doing nothing. This, hopefully now as part of a trial, will all be part of something through World Rugby that we can make the game safer. And it's not just about the top end. I actually think the top end of the game is pretty well looked after because there's so much focus on people. It's the whole way through the game.
Briefly on the tackle, in Joe Schmidt's book, he was concerned about there's a law of unintended consequences. Bundy Aki gets a red card in the first 5 minutes of the next game. The two centres both go low at the same time. Ordinarily, one would have gone high, one would have gone low. They clash heads. Essentially, they're not the same player for the rest of the game. Is that cause and effect, or is that...
It's difficult because it came in at a time, and I wrestled with this in my head the whole way through it. Had lots of conversations with Joe as well over the summer. Like a lot of coaches, we're talking to each other as we looked in this focus. And the more I reflected, I suppose, after the event, I was thinking, like trying to discipline a child, even though it was difficult for people within the tournament, and there may have been some law of unintended consequence, etc., to actually show the greater game. And it didn't have a massive impact in the end on the tournament, but it actually demonstrated the whole game because, yeah, we live and you live at the elite level, but you have to actually show and demonstrate the whole way down. I go to so many mini rugby games and weekends, and you go and you see some of the behaviours there in the tackle, and the best way to show everybody is the top end are doing it, yeah. We're all doing it. And it wasn't perfect, we all know that, and there were certainly the consistency of decisions through the head tackles, the tackles that made contact with the head, were things that we all talked about the whole time, but overall it didn't make an impact at the end of the tournament, and hopefully taught a few good lessons. Okay,
so that's the hard part is over now. You hope that the implementation comes in. It's like the tip tackle a couple of years ago. Everybody gave out about it.
Don't mention the tip tackle. we lost a player in the red card on that for no. Yeah, no, and it is. It's like anything. I'd say it's the same. I get irritated because I'd like the referees to be stronger in terms of the offside lines and things like that, because if they actually disciplined the offside line and didn't get bored refereeing, then we wouldn't be talking about a lot of things. So I think, it could be across the board, just a little bit harsher in the way in the short term, and then it'll change behaviour.
Yeah, okay. Talk to us about what's next for you, because obviously you've reached the elite level in terms of coaching at international level. Is that where you would like to spend the rest of your coaching career involved in the international game, or do you want to go back to the day-to-day involved in the club?
I'll see over the next little while what the next step will be.
Because you have been linked with the RFU in some kind of role there.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I think I felt straight after the World Cup it was the right time. And I probably talked last June to the Italian Federation, and we're talking about the next 4-year cycle, and I knew I couldn't commit to the next 4 years mentally in Italy. Loved every second of what I did, but said that I wasn't going to go for that next 4 years. And post World Cup just feels and felt like the right time for a new voice, rather than a 3-month Six Nations where everyone's just looking at you going, well, you're gone and he's coming in and this is going on, and it's
a waste of everybody's time.
It felt it would be a waste of so much good work we've done, and I know it's a long journey, but even our own World Cup finished difficult with the New Zealand game being off, but we scored more tries and more points than any Italian team that's gone to a World Cup. So there's a good young group. When you look at people like Pelledri and Stein and Seb Negri, Tommy Allen's coming into his prime, Matteo Manozzi, and there's some good young players behind. But and that excites me. It excites me what's been done in terms of building the initial steps in the Italian journey, so to speak. But why waste 3 months? And that's why I said, you know, you're just going to have not a lame duck, but you're going to have some of the people looking and said, are you invested in this for the next? And my family gave a huge amount to the last 4 years, but I felt it was the right time. So I just made the decision that, yes, there are other opportunities on the way, but was I going to wait until after the Six Nations? Unfair on a lot of people.
It's definitely the coaching side of the end, because you've a long track record of being involved in administration and in different sports as well. But is rugby coaching now the thing that Conor O'Shea wants to do?
No, rugby,
right.
Sport, is my passion. And so that's why what I do isn't a job. Never has been. You know, people say, oh, you're eternally positive for this. Well, how can you not have energy doing something that is... I didn't, you know, even driving in here today, getting stuck in the traffic, you know, I was thinking back to leaving college, leaving UCD, working in Hume Street in the bank, and then heading down to Lansdowne, and that was what you got into at the start. But all the time, all you wanted to do was be involved. And so rugby is my passion. I like seeing people get better, and we'll see what the next step is. That's nice and evasive.
Okay,
isn't it? Not beautifully evasive. Is that good?
If say one day you do go back into coaching, if that's a specific thing you do want to go back into, what is the thing you're after? What is the thing that hooked you most to being a coach?
I think just seeing people become better. I know that's a tried thing, and it's very difficult. The Italian experience was an amazing experience. It will live with me forever. And trying to retain hope with the group of players and giving them a focus of, it's very difficult when your mindset may be, we play our best, they play their best, they win. And that's not defeatist, but the fact of the matter, if you're playing the All Blacks and it's Italy, the only thing you could focus on is becoming better and being the best you could be, and seeing how people react under pressure, how you can improve people under pressure, and retain that belief, even though it can be difficult at times. And ultimately that's it. And it's not just about the players on the pitch, it's about the staff off the pitch. It's about making sure that everyone is continually energised and continually looking to get better. The challenge is, do you know what it looks like to win? And that's a different question.
Yeah.
Because winning is something that Irish people are now used to. So the players know, and that's something that Joe, not just Joe, Michael Cheika and people before, Declan Kidney, Eddie O'Sullivan, Warren Gatland at the start, you track back so far in the evolution of how Irish rugby became to what it is now and our expectation now in Irish rugby. So there's a huge thing of, you can do so much, but you are your players, and that the playing base must understand what it looks like to win, what it takes to win, and then it becomes self-fulfilling.
It's interesting though, you talk about that, and you're totally right, it obviously has gone to a whole new level in terms of what we expect from our national team in Ireland, and yet it's the same story. It's a quarter-final defeat. It's a heavy defeat at the hands of New Zealand, something that we would have expected 10, 15 years ago. What's your thought process on that once we get to the World Cup quarter-final, I don't want to say the old Irish...
Irish rugby for us.
Well, you see, I think sport is in the margins. So you look at any game and it's not oversimplifying, and yet it was massively disappointing because Ireland got our best team on the pitch by and large, the one that we'd have wanted, that Joe would have wanted. I think of Johnny's kick to touch that Richie Mo'unga keeps in, and it's just an unbelievable piece of skill by Mo'unga. If that game is, I forget the exact score, was it 10-3 at the time or something?
10-0, yeah.
10-0. If that's kicked into the corner and it's not, and we get the maul going and we score at that stage, the energy and mentality of a game completely changes. England's unbelievable performance against New Zealand. If Sam Whitelock, and these are a lot of ifs, but that's the game. There are pivotal moments of the game, and the end result doesn't reflect the actual game itself. So, I mean, the All Blacks were outstanding against us. Did we allow them? But there was things that happened within the game that completely changed the momentum. And momentum to the All Blacks, and you're dead. So, did Ireland perform at the World Cup to the levels? No, of course they didn't. But it can change. Did South Africa? Did South Africa when they lost to New Zealand? Did South Africa against Wales? No, they didn't. And everyone says they're playing for this greater purpose in the final. Yes, they did in the final, but they're bloody lucky to get there. Because, Wales, if Patchell or drops a goal in the last minute, they're out.
They don't have any of the injuries they had, so it was a...
Yeah, and there's a lot of ifs in sport, but then you take that luck and you ride it, and you become the team that South Africa became by the end of the tournament, and they were big. I mean, up close and personal, they were big.
Do we need to look at our setup in Ireland? Do we need to... Because Joe Schmidt was in last week talking about his book, and he was saying that he'd be very disappointed if we were to have a massive overhaul of our structures and systems that he believes, and I can see why, if you've been in it for as long as he has, that you think the structures work, that, you know, most of the time you get your best players available for you and they're relatively fresh to play. There are other systems. There are other ways of looking at this, particularly over the first 2 years of a 4-year World Cup cycle. We could let all our players go off, make a bunch of cash, and then say, if you want to play for Ireland for the last 18 months before World Cup, you've got to be contracted by an Irish province. We're not going to do that. We're going to stick with what we had. And Einstein had that definition of insanity being repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm just a little bit concerned that we're going to have a review and say it was in the fine margins and we're not going to change anything, and hopefully the next team with the same level of preparation goes out and just does a bit better. Yeah,
but there's a lot that goes on within World Cups which you'd have to be inside every camp to understand what it is. So I don't know what it was like inside the Irish camp. I can talk about the Italian camp. You can talk about experiences you get from other people when you're talking to them, and it's unbelievably intense period away together. Now, like in every job, it's hard. Every job is hard. You have a tough day at work, but you go home. In rugby, you have a tough day at work or a tough day at the office, you go home. In camp for 2 or 3 months, there is no home. People see the Instagram posts and they see the Twitter and they see the lovely trips to the temples and fellas having great fun. But it's an unbelievable experience, but it's intense. There is no escape. So you live all the issues that, like a family, you live the issues of the family, but you have no escape from each other.
And we have this obsession with the quarter-final where it becomes this massive Everest.
And I love my golf, and you know, I was watching a documentary on Tony Jacklin versus Trevino in the British Open, and how mentally what happened in the last couple of holes in the British Open where Tony Jacklin lost to Trevino, how he never competed at the highest level again, even though in fact he was a British Open or a US Open winner in 1970. He never competed because mentally something happened to him that day. So there's a psychological element in sport, which is, you know, the Dubs winning 5 in a row, they nearly didn't get across the line because the 5th was incredible and Kerry wanted to beat them so badly, sort of thing. So there's so many elements, because there's no doubt in the build up to the next World Cup for Ireland, that's all the talk will be.
Yeah.
And we will have a very successful side going to that World Cup because our provinces are good.
Strong sports psychology is obviously an important aspect of that.
And players. There's the amateur side of it as well. It's not just about getting, you know, psychology isn't the panacea. It's a massive part of it. I'm a firm believer in it, done in the right way, delivered through the coaches as well as the individuals. But there's also having the people with the right sort of mindset to take that next step. And some of that will come down to luck. Some of it will come down to luck. I'll go back to that golf. If you look at that golf documentary, if you get a chance, Trevino chipped in 5 times in the last round. Chipped in 5 times in the last round, and Tony Jacklin said he was just looking, going, "I've won this, I've won this, I've won this, I've won this," and finally he just broke.
I can see why. That sounds like
it was good. It was a good documentary.
Something's against you. Look, in terms of what the future for Irish rugby is, obviously the provincial system will continue to be strong, and it looks like our strategy is going to be not to play players who move abroad. I floated the idea yesterday. It was a random idea about Ireland, the IRFU, buying a share in the Premiership. The easiest way to do that would be to take over a club. The easiest club to take over would obviously be London Irish. Now, they have an owner who I'm sure might not want to do that. But do we need to be radical and look at ideas like that? Should we buy a French club? And should we be looking at understanding exactly what's happening in the boardroom in those English clubs when they are seizing power from the RFU in England?
No, I don't think it would happen. It could ever happen. I mean, I joined London Irish in 1995, and there was always this thing of getting the link stronger, etc. Yeah. But they are London Irish. Mick Crossan's a brilliant owner for London Irish. The move back into Brentford will probably re-energise their link with the Irish community in London as opposed to being in Reading. So that's a big step forward. But it is an English club. It's Irish heritage, but it's in the English Premiership, and you're not going to get around. They'll probably, if they were ring fencing the Irish or the Premiership at any stage, if that ever happened, would a wholly owned IRFU subsidiary be allowed in there? I just don't know that answer. So I think look after what you've got. Don't start spreading yourself thin. You've got four incredibly strong provinces that are competing at the top end now, including Connacht in Europe. And we've enough. There's enough players. The playing base.
Do you think it is big enough at four provinces?
I mean, Scotland and Italy will always have challenges because of the depth of only two, and that's something that has to be looked at by both. With four, you have plenty. And if you look at the English Premiership, there will be more players available to England, no doubt about that, but there are a huge number of foreign players in there as well, which supplement each of the squads. So actually, when you look at, if you can go 3 or 4 deep, and Ireland can easily do that, I suppose the challenge will always be what happens to the young players who are going to get blocked by some of the younger international players that will be there for a number of years. Because if you're a young back rower behind... Or imports, yeah. But I mean, it's the same everywhere. And I know that the headlines will be made by the signings of, RJ Snyman or Damien Delande, and who are they going to block and who are they... But in terms of a jigsaw, I'm sure everybody is sitting down and looking at when we signed that, because David Nucifora, they've done a huge job over a number of years. What you don't, and I do, this is a personal thing for the outside, when you see a team in Munster or Ulster becoming mainly foreign players not from the parish, so to speak, then that would be a bigger issue. You have to have that identity with your club or with your province. So there's getting the balance right, but you have to still retain the... so long ago since I used to travel down and get beaten by Munster or beaten by Shannon when I was playing for Lansdowne, and they just kicked the living hell out of you with the fellas who are just so proud. So you have to keep that identity.
That really matters. Conor, you've been great with your time. I know you've got to go, but thanks very much and best of luck with the new gig whenever you're ready to announce it next week, maybe, is it?
Yeah, and best of luck to Mark and Sandra as well for this, because it's a great initiative, the M-Pro Headguard.
Yeah, so the launch of the M-Pro Headguard is taking place today. You can check it out. n-pro.com is the website, and it reduces impact force to the head by up to 75% versus traditional headguards. Founded in Galway, it's the first headguard of its kind to be approved for global law trial by World Rugby to be used in competitive games at all levels globally. We'll be back with some OTB Gold straight after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.